Hi, welcome back. Welcome back. Is Sunday. Welcome back to Coffee with Mom, and it is time for our Submission Sunday post. I have a brand new mug, shameless plug that you guys will be seeing a whole lot of. Shout out to Megan for the great idea. But this week, we are going to be discussing bullying. And while not the happiest topic, it is one that I felt needed to be addressed this holiday season. And I say that because with it being a holiday, kids are going to be getting a lot of new things, new clothes, new toys, things they want to show off. And with the great feeling that everybody gets being able to give their children something that they want, there also comes with that the flip side of the coin, and that parent that can't give their child everything that they want, and in turn that child goes to school and daycare and activities with children who got everything on their Christmas list and they may not have. And unfortunately, they find themselves the victim of ridicule and bullying, and they get picked on for something that is totally beyond their control. And so, with things going how they have been recently, I felt like we had to touch on this topic. And I decided this last Sunday, and then here it is yesterday, I believe it was, I see this video that has been going all around Instagram, Facebook. Celebrities are commenting on it. Everything has something to say about this Kenton Johnson video. And for those of you who don't know, there's a little boy in Tennessee, I believe, who had his mom make a video after she picked him up from school. She picked him up from school because it was lunchtime, and he asked her to come because he didn't want to go to lunch because he gets picked on and bullied so severely that he just doesn't want to take it. And in this video, it's heartbreaking because this little boy really asks the question that I feel so many bullied children ask, and that's why. Why is it that another child feels the need to pick apart kids that are different, or kids that may not have as much, or just kids that they feel like deserve to be picked on because they don't look or sound or do the things that they do, and he's pleading with people to just stop it. And he makes the argument for kids that are going through it like things will get better. And it really got to me because while bullying is becoming a lot more violent, I think, and a lot more prevalent, I don't think it's anything new. You sit back and talk to your parents and they tell you, oh, we were bullied. Kids these days just don't have thick skin and they need to learn to stand up for themselves. And oh, it's the same thing everybody goes through. When the reality is, even if it is the same, why is it something that people need to go through? Why is it that as a society, we became so comfortable with the idea of tearing each other down and tearing each other apart, and especially at such young ages? In elementary school, high school, middle school, you're learning who you are, you're changing, you're developing, you're figuring out what it means to be you. Why is that the time where we feel like it's okay to tease each other? It really bothers me, and it's starting to really get under my skin a lot more because now we're having these kids going to the extreme of recording themselves beating up on other kids, recording themselves teasing other kids with a mass of children around, recording themselves saying goodbye to their families and committing suicide at extremely young ages, and it's heartbreaking. And so with that being what's happening now, I thought that we should kind of jump into the discussion about bullying. Now, in preparation for this video, I did a lot of reading, I watched a lot of videos, and what I was really surprised by was the really low numbers that the government records on bullying. In my mind, it's like, oh my God, bullying is everywhere. These kids are out of control. And you go on the bullying website that the government runs, and they're saying things like 30%, 20% of kids are bullied. 30% they say that they have been a bully. They're saying things like, okay, yes, 70% of kids that have been bullied say that it's happened once or twice in a month. When kids go to school 5 days a week, all month, that's 20 days of school at least in a month. And you're telling me they've only been bullied once or twice? My question became, where are you getting these numbers? Is it because they don't want the problem to seem as out of control as it is because we don't have any federal mandates that make bullying a punishable crime? Or is it because it's so underreported? It could be one or the other. It could be both, honestly. But the numbers just surprised me. They seemed extremely low. And then, of course, they point to LGBT youth and say how much higher it is with them, that they're getting bullied and the suicide rates are higher with them. And not singling them out, but they're just pointing out that there is a variance in the rates, and that even with those numbers being different, that when the media covers like suicides due to bullying, they shouldn't call it suicide due to bullying. They should say that it is a community health issue, not a criminal one. And for me, it was just like, what the hell? Like, what do you mean it's a community health issue? Yeah, these kids are depressed, they're isolated, they're hurt, they're begging for some kind of support, someone to reach out, someone to help them, be it a teacher, a principal, a fellow student, a mom, a dad, an aunt, a cousin. Yeah, they want help, but to say that it's not a crime to me is a joke. These kids are being tortured. They're being ridiculed, name called, all of their supposed flaws pointed out. Things that they're not responsible for, like how much money comes into their household, is being put on display and taunted, and it's just, it hurts my feelings, but it also pisses me off. So I sat with myself for a minute, and I had to really think back and not just say, okay, these are the facts, this is what they say about bullying, this must be true. Or I didn't want to say, okay, you get angry, this is what's important, whatever's important to you is what it really is, this is what it is about bullying. I had to realize that it is a collective issue. It really is. It goes from top to bottom. It goes from these children who are now exposed to a higher level of violence, these children who are now conditioned to view violence as something that's fun or appropriate, all the way up to these principals in these schools who are so worried about a lawsuit that they don't want to be held accountable for what is taking place within those walls during the day when they are responsible for your child. They're so quick to deny what is happening or to sweep it under the rug that they're missing key opportunities to really reach out and save and make a difference in these kids' lives. And so I thought back to my own experiences, and after talking to a group of people, I talked to some older, some younger, it really shocked me, the stories of bullying that I never expected with myself. I was bullied. People who know me know that I can be kind of a hard ass. They know that I can be kind of an asshole. And so you wouldn't think that I was bullied, but the reality is, yes, it happened. It happened to me to the point where I would dread getting up to going to school every day. I would skip school quite often because I just got fed up and I got tired, not because no one was defending me or protecting me, but just simply because kids were mean. Like, I had lots of friends. I was in tons of activities. I knew a ton of people, but that didn't stop people from finding something to pick apart about me and tease me for. Those who don't know me, I came out in high school. I thought, okay, here's this moment. It's going to happen. I'm going to be true to who I am. I'm going to date and be with whomever I feel. Love is love. That whole spiel. I've been fighting within myself for quite some time, trying to figure out if I could live with this feeling. And then after coming out, the bullying began. There were girls who would walk out of the bathroom when I would walk in. There were parents who wouldn't allow their child to stay the night anymore with me around because they were fearful of me. There were teachers who approached me and would ask me very inappropriate questions about my relationships. And it just got to a point after driving up the street in my little red Mazda and being called a dyke by somebody I had never even met, that I just realized, you know what, I can't deal with this anymore. I can't, I won't. So I started to shut myself off and shut myself down, and the depression became very real. And I was diagnosed in high school, and it just, my story is not new. My story is not isolated, and it's really sad that it repeats so often, but it does. And then I talk to my friends, and they have stories of being bullied for what they look like or sounded like, or for being smart, or not having name brand clothes. And it's just, to me as an adult, it's laughable that people really feel the need to talk about each other for these things. But then I realize, as an adult, there are still people talking about other people for these things. There are adults that shame other adults for not having a lot of money. There are adults that shame other adults for what they look like. Body shaming is a real thing. People are still homophobic. People are still sexist and racist. And there's all these reasons people find to point out an individual and tease them. So it's no wonder that these children are doing the same when this is their example. As parents, I ask you, how do you stop the cycle? How do you make sure that your child is not a victim, but also make sure your child is not a perpetrator? When they walk out of your house every morning, how do you make sure that they're not going to school and teasing that kid that couldn't have the new pair of tennis shoes that you had to put in overtime to provide for them? What do you do? How do you do it? When they see someone being picked on, do you teach your children to stand up for others, or do you teach them to mind their business? And when I say teach them, we lead by example. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with an adult about, let's just say, violence in the home. And the first thing out of their mouth is, that's none of my business. How many guys have seen one of their homeboys yell at their girlfriend or yell at their wife or even lay hands on her and say, that's none of my business? So when your kids go to school and they see little Mikey getting beat up, are they supposed to say that's none of my business? Or do they stand up for them? Or do you teach your child that it's not their place to stand up because the world has become so violent and things can happen? Like, how do you navigate this is my question. How do you have this conversation of victimizing and bullying and taunting? What are the discussions like in your home? I know there are a lot more adult conversations having to be had with kids these days just because of the state of the world we live in, but how do you address this? Parents, I'm talking to you. Moms, I'm talking to you. When you sit your sons and daughters down, how do you teach them about differences without giving them the idea that differences need to be pointed out and talked about and ridiculed? How do you go about that? Parents, hell, even if you find out that your kid is a bully, if they're getting in fights every day at school, maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's not that, oh, someone's picking on them. Maybe it's because they're picking on someone else. How do you address that? Where do you go when you find out that your kid is the one who's starting these fights? What do you do? What do you say? Do you attack the school? Oh, no, you're not going to jump on my kid, or you're not going to tell me about my child? Or do you look at your son and say, hey, did you tease that little boy about his tennis shoes? Do you realize that I had to put in an extra 10 hours to make sure that they were on your feet, and you don't even tie them all the way up and you let the laces get dirty and walk on the back of them? Do you say those kind of things to your kids? What do you do? What do you do? I'm asking. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. How do we stop situations like the one that everybody is now discussing? Everybody is going viral with this little boy's video, but his message is not new. I applaud him. I applaud him for being brave enough to stand up and say this isn't right. I applaud his mother for being strong enough to ask the hard questions and not pretend like this isn't happening. But this isn't new. It's not new. Everybody wants to stand up and, Oh, we've got motorcycle gangs that are going to go to his school, and celebrities that are like, hey man, I'll be your best friend. But have you asked your kid what it looks like every day when they go to school? Have you asked them if they've ever bullied someone? Have you ever asked them if they've been bullied? Everybody wants to give condolences to this stranger, but what are you doing in your own home? How do you prevent this? How do you help this? If your child is being bullied, what do you do? What are the steps? Share those steps. Help each other. Build with each other. This has to not just be an individual solution. It has to be a community thing. It has to be a village solution. It starts with every single parent addressing what's happening in their home and then extending that hand to the person next to them and saying, how can I help you? If you find out your friend's child is being bullied, if your son or daughter comes home and says, hey, let me tell you what happened at school, and it involves somebody's child being hurt, it means you picking up the phone and reaching out to the school, reaching out to the school board, reaching out to that parent, telling your child that it's okay to reach out to that child and ask if they're okay. Being that helping hand and really changing the script, changing the dialogue and the scenario so that we don't have any more 7-year-olds killing themselves, so that we don't have any more little girls ending up in the hospital after being jumped in garages, so we don't have any more school shootings because children are just to the point where they just can't take anymore. It starts at home. It starts with us. It starts with these open, honest conversations. It starts with saying, hey, I was bullied. I was beat up. I was teased. I was hurt. I was isolated. I was alone. And I know how that feels. And I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that it never happens to someone I love, someone I know, or someone that is trusting me with their child. Each of us has that responsibility, whether you are a parent, a friend, an aunt, an uncle, a caregiver, it doesn't matter. Each of us has to start somewhere with this conversation and help out and change things, because it is getting to a point where there are too many little boys and girls like Keaton Johnson. I hope I'm saying his name right, Lord help me. But there's too many of them, and we have to make a difference. And I even asked a few friends of mine if they think that their own experiences with bullying shaped the type of parents they came out to be. And some of them said no, some said yes, but just being on the outside and asking the question, I will say that the answers vary. Those who used to be bullies and can admit that they were bullies, when their children talk about bullying or things that happen, it surprised me really. I didn't expect it, but their responses were, you need tougher skin. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to just point out what's wrong with them. You need to tease them back. You need to rank and roast them. Whereas those who were victims of bullying, their first reaction is, oh, I'll fight a kid. I'll kill a kid. I'll beat up his parents too. I wish somebody would mess with my child. They're quick to jump to the defense in the way that some of them, I got the impression, wish somebody would have defended them. Instead of saying, oh no, my child can defend themselves. It's like, yeah, I'm going to teach my child to be strong, but just know that I'll be up at the school. Like they're really all about the battle cry. Whereas those who were bullies are like, you can take it. If they hit you, hit back harder. Like it's a very different mentality, which is really surprising for me. So I also ask you guys, how do you feel like the situation with bullying affected you as parents? If you were a bully, if you were bullied, or if you witnessed bullying, do you think that had an impact on your parenting style? Yes, no, maybe so. I want to hear about it. I want to know if it made a difference, if seeing everything that we're seeing in the news is having any kind of effect in your household. But more importantly, I want us to start talking about this. Not just because the celebrities are in on it, not just because there's a hashtag, not just because there's a video, but because this is a real life thing. Our kids are away from us for hours a day, and these are the things they are dealing with. And so it is our responsibility to be a part of this discussion. So we'll start here, we'll start now, and I want to hear from you. That's it. I mean, that's my spiel, I guess. That's all I've got to say. I struggled with this topic just because it opened a few not so comfortable wounds for me, and now my dogs are barking. Somebody must be home. But I felt it was necessary. I thought we had to talk about it, especially this time of year. The kids will be home for a prolonged amount of time, so this is a really good time to have those talks that you don't get to have with the hustle and bustle of school and work and everything going on. You'll have them home for a week or two. Talk to them, get in their heads, get in their friends' heads, find out what's going on when you guys aren't around, because that is part of it. Is there's a lot happening when you're not around that they don't tell you about. So do what you can to become part of that conversation. And I thank you and I love you, and love on each other, love on me. Share this video, talk about it, tell me what you think. And this was a long one, I know, but it deserved every minute. So I will see you guys next week, and bye.